Today we're going to be doing the 0 level haircut and the 45-degree haircut. What you will need is your mannequin saturated and soaking wet. You need a cutting comb, which looks like this. It has a ruler on it. If you look tightly at it, it will say 7 inches. You will need 4 sectioning clips. You will need your shears, and you will need a spray bottle if necessary if your mannequin gets warm. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna begin our timer. So Mercedes, can you start our timer, please? As soon as the timer goes off, you will have 50 minutes to complete both haircuts. I'm going to do it with you and narrate it for you so that we can all evenly time ourselves. Most important thing is that we're efficient, that we follow along, that we don't get lost, and that we stay within the 50 minutes so that during the state board exam, everybody gets the proper amount of points. So as we start right now, everybody begin sectioning. You will begin by making a middle part on your mannequin. All the way to the back of the head. So you have 2 equal hemispheres on the head. Now you will begin by determining the apex. When you balance a comb on the head of the mannequin, wherever that comb balances is the apex. You make a part from the apex to behind the ear, making sure that it's right next to the ear line, so you don't have too much hair in the front or the back. Now you will make 4 sections. You will grab the hair in the front from behind the ear to that middle section. You will do the same thing on the opposite side, drawing a line basically with the comb from the apex to directly behind the ear. Directly behind. And pull that all into your hand, gathering it without any knots to ensure that you have a really nice section. Now in the back, I have my hair already parted. So I did that from before. And I'm going to leave a 1-inch curtain on the bottom because that's going to be my first guideline cut. A 1-inch curtain. Okay, gather in all the hair as neat as you can. Give it a graceful twist so that it's easy to pull out. You don't want to have it so twisted so tightly that you have problems pulling the hair down. Again, if this was a client or actually before the test, the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to ensure that your hands have been sanitized by using a hand sanitizer that you already have packed. You're also going to be wearing masks, but for the purpose of this video, I am 6 feet away from anybody else in the room. Okay? When I put my shears in my hand, when I'm looking at my shears, I make sure I only put my ring finger in the shears up to the cuticle. My pinky goes on the tang, and my middle finger goes in that first divot. My thumb goes in place, and I never put my comb down throughout the haircut. So this is what I have available. Everybody ready to start? The very first thing I do is I'm going to push my mannequin head forward, and I determine the center portion of the back of the hair. No matter how long your mannequin hair is, for the state board it's going to be a fresh mannequin, so it's going to be easier. But for right now, you are going to cut a 1/2 inch off whatever length your mannequin already is, okay? So I'm going to look at my cutting comb. There are inch increments on it. I'm going to hold it up and see where about a half an inch falls, and that's where I'm going to cut. I'm going to be pulling the hair with some tension and then lifting it up to a comfortable cutting position. Never cut beyond your second line of your finger. If you do that, you will possibly cut your finger. So you see the first line, the second line, never cut beyond the second line. That's when you know when you need to move. So now that I have my cutting stationary guideline for my 0 level, I'm going to split that and choose a side. I am moving my feet and stepping from side to side to make sure that I have a perfectly straight line without any over direction. Again, cutting only up to that second knuckle line. I am moving my feet every single time I move to a new cutting position. Again, I'm keeping the hair tight and pulling it down, and then after that I lift it up to cut. Once I do one side, I'm going to move to the other side and start there. When I am cutting horizontally, I am parallel to the floor. That means this is going to be a straight 0 level haircut in the back, okay? As soon as I'm done with that first curtain, which is my guideline, my stationary guideline, I always pull the pieces down and make sure that all the pieces are exactly where they should be. That they're the same length all the way around. This is where I make all my concessions or corrections first, just to make sure the rest of my 0 level is proper. When cutting for the state board exam, you are cutting between 6.5 and 7 inches. That means either the entire length of the comb or a half an inch shorter. It cannot be any other length. It can only be 6.5 or 7 inches. The comb is very important because what you do is you go under the nape and hold the hair, and you'll know exactly how long it is. There's 3 measurement points. The first one is under the nape of the neck here, and you pull it tight up against the comb. That's measurement number 1. I will tell you when the other 2 measurements come up. Now, because I am done with the stationary guideline, I'm going to take one clip off, separate this whole group of hair into 2 sections, meaning if I was going to measure from the apex to behind the ear here, wherever I feel that part is halfway, that's where I leave my next section. And again, I'm gathering slightly the hair up here, putting it back into a nice delicate twist so it's not knotted when I take it out. And now I'm combing with the small teeth this half of the back of the head. What's amazing is that the side that we just cut, that we dropped before, becomes the stationary guideline visual reference point. Now I can easily start in the back, pull the hair tight, determine where my 0 level is, and cut from there. Walking around this side of the haircut. I'm walking around it and determining where I have to cut based on the stationary guideline that I already established. Again, never cutting past that second knuckle. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to determine where the halfway mark is by releasing the clip, coming from that part and going straight across the back of the head and combing that straight down. I'm going to gently gather the hair on top and clip it. As I'm combing this down, I'm already seeing where my center stationary guideline is, and that's where I begin to cut. following and walking around the back of the head, keeping that stationary guideline nice and crisp. Again, it's what I do, and I think it's important. I always at this point make sure that when I pull the hair, it falls in the same spot, and that I'm measuring to make sure that both sides are exactly the same. I like to do it throughout the haircut. It makes me more confident, but you don't have to do that. Next step in the back, release my last clip and put it down. Comb that hair perfectly straight, making sure you're combing it in the direction that it grows. Do not over direct the hair. And now I have this side acting as the stationary guideline for this side, okay? So cut now that last back section. And again, you must walk around the haircut. If you don't walk around the haircut, you will have a problem with over directing your cuts, and your haircut will never be even. We are working with a stationary guideline. We are doing a horizontal, zero level haircut. And it's very important that we follow all the rules. Now I go to the next side and I do the same thing. I released all the hair on the back now. There's nothing that's in a clip. I comb it straight down. And I always start in that back part so that I can continually reaffirm my zero level and my stationary guideline. We are at about 12 minutes right now, which is acceptable. Okay, we are moving forward. I know that this is all even. So now I'm going to take the head off of the stand and move it till it's facing me, okay? My mannequin has 2 clips on the side. I am releasing them at this time. I am taking my second measurement of whatever inches I was in the back. So if I forgot, I go back to the back of the nape. I calculate how short my hair is, and that's how short my bangs are going to be, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little triangle parting here, combing this straight down, determining by putting it underneath the hair where my back hair was cut. My back piece of hair was cut in the center of my comb at about 4 inches, I would say. So that's where I'm going to cut this hair. I'm making a straight cut right there at the level of the nape. So this is how long the back of the hair was cut underneath the nape. And I'll show you what that means. This piece of hair and this piece of hair are basically at the same measurement. As soon as I do that, I have to make sure that I connect. Now the word here is very important, the word connect. I split that first piece in the front, I comb all the hair down, and I have to make sure that there's a perfect diagonal connection between this back piece that I cut and this front piece that I just cut. If you hold the comb, it should all fall into place like that, a perfect diagonal line, okay? So to do that, I'm only cutting about 1.5 inches at a time. I'm using the guideline that I have pre-cut, and I'm cutting on a diagonal, going very slowly to ensure that I don't cut any holes in this haircut. I could always take away more hair in the end, but I can't put it back. So I am very careful to just take a small piece at a time, cutting in a diagonal fashion until I get to the piece behind the ear. Going slowly. Taking just about 1/2 inch at a time. Once I get to the piece behind the ear, I make sure that it's even. If it is not, I cut it a little bit shorter, which I'm going to do now. I'm gonna have to cut it a little bit shorter, but that's okay. At least I didn't overcut it from the beginning. And now I'm gonna go backwards to make sure that it meets with that front piece that I had pre-cut. That was my front guideline. Okay, that's done. And as you could see, it makes a perfect diagonal from the cut line down. Okay, now I'm just gonna go back and make sure that I have nothing that stands out, and I do not. Everything looks perfectly even. Okay, so I'm gonna take the mannequin, turn it this way, and remember, I split the bang, so I still have a guideline on this side. Again, I'm gonna hold my hands in a different direction because I'm on the opposite side of the head and I am a righty, so now I have to hold my hands in a different position. And I'm going to cut slowly the diagonal on this side, very slowly. And again, if I don't cut enough hair, that's fine. I can always go backwards, which is what I plan to do anyway. I want to make sure I don't have any holes or gaps in my style. Be sure that you're not overcutting. Be sure that you're not cutting past your second knuckle. Again, now I'm at the back. I want to make sure that my hair is even, and it is. This one I didn't have to go back at all. Okay, so if I'm combing this down, actually I'm gonna go back because I see one stray hair. Always look for stray hairs because sometimes when the hair is very wet, like my mannequin is, some of the hairs get stuck, so you might get a few spare hairs. Okay, so as you can see, if I comb this down, my diagonal is perfect. It goes from the face cut all the way back down to that piece right behind the ear, and it's perfectly done. So now I'm ready to start the second part of my haircut, which is going to be the layering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my mannequin this way so that you can see how I begin. Everybody is going to make a mohawk parting. From the apex forward. Those of you in the class that are not up to where I'm up to, it's okay. You'll get there. Just make sure that you understand what I'm doing. Everybody else follow along. You are making a mohawk parting. You're going to give it a gentle twist. You don't want to make anything so twisted that you can't get it out and comb it quickly, because the test, even combing out the twist, could take some time. You're going to be going directly from one to the other during the state board exam, so this is important. Again, now I'm on the side and I'm making a section to behind the ear and giving it a gentle twist and pushing it up. Same thing on the other side. Now, we are doing an opposite action. We are starting the haircut in the apex instead of starting at the bottom like we did for the 0 level. Now, the rules have changed a little bit. Instead of holding your comb and shears horizontally, everything done in a layered haircut is done vertically. So I will be combing my hair vertically, cutting my hair vertically. It's very easy to understand once you see it happen. So I'm going to start my traveling guideline now by taking a square inch, parting from the back on the apex. Now I like to comb my hair in subsections. It makes it easier for me. So I'm going to comb a 1-inch subsection and just push it over with my comb. I don't have to clip it. I'm just pushing it over with my comb, as you can see, just so that I have some clarity on what I'm doing. Okay? I'm going to take my first inch and I'm going to pull it up directly out from the direction of hair growth. This is what you need to remember for cutting layers. It cannot be over directed on any level. You have to pull this hair 90 degrees straight up so that it forms a perpendicular, almost box shape. It's going to be exactly straight up, and we are cutting a 1/2 inch off. Wherever your mannequin lies, you're going to cut a 1/2 inch off. Okay, just like that. If you need to re-wet your mannequin, you can re-wet it at any point. Now, what I'm going to do is, because this guideline is traveling, I need some of it to keep going. So I'm going to drop half, bend my mannequin forward, and now I'm going to use this as the guideline, going down this whole inch center part. Again, pulling it straight from the direction of hair growth. I locate my last cut line, should be about a 1/2 inch, and I cut off a 1/2 inch. I'm going to drop the beginning part and hold into the bottom because that part was already cut, and it serves as my traveling guideline as I move down the haircut. Again, looking at my cut line and meeting that with my scissor. You always have to meet and make a connection with the scissor. Don't just cut a 1/2 inch because they might already have layers. So you want to just cut, like as I'm getting to the bottom, you'll see there's less hair to cut. Until I get to this bottom piece, and here's where the game changes. Again, I'm combing it down in a downward direction because the hair grows in a downward direction here, okay? Now, I'm going to pull the hair until the bottom piece drops. As you can see, that piece just dropped. Once that piece drops, that's how you know when to stop. I'm going to take now this guideline that I already cut and just cut all the hair up into that guideline after I drop the hair. If I didn't drop the hair, I would be cutting the perimeter twice, and you can't do that. Now, I push my mannequin up and I comb my hair straight down. Now I make a center part in the back of the head, and I know that I have guideline now on both sides. So the first thing I do is I push away all the hair of the hair I'm not cutting right now. We're going to wait for that for later. And now I'm going to be cutting this side of the hair. I like to break it in 2 sections. It makes it easier and makes a more precise haircut. Okay? Again, only using my comb and shears in a vertical position. I'm going to start on top, and I have to be very mindful and careful that I'm looking for my guideline, my traveling guideline, because in a layered haircut, your guidelines are always traveling. And I see it. It's right there. And it's about at a 1/2 inch again. So that means that this haircut was done right the last time. Drop half forward, grab my next section, and now I start to pull in the direction of hair growth, perfectly perpendicular to the head. So if I held my comb here, it would make a perfect 90-degree angle. Again, dropping half of the hair, I come under here, and now I'm in my second to last section, pulling the hair in the direction of hair growth, cutting vertically and combing only vertically. If you comb this horizontally, you will never have a good haircut. All layering is done only using a vertical hair cutting position. Again, let's talk about this one more time. On the bottom, it's a little tighter to pull. You make sure that you're pulling in the direction of hair growth. The minute that that hair falls, which is right there, that's when you stop. You look for your guideline and you cut. It might only be a tiny amount of hair, that's okay. Now I'm going to comb this all down. I always take a teeny tiny bit of my last cut section and add it in, just to make sure that I have as much guideline as I need. Now I'm in my last section in the back. Again, starting at the apex, combing out the hair in the direction of hair growth, locating my cut line, which again is at a 1/2 inch. So whoever cut this mannequin's hair last did a great job. Everything has been very consistent. That's not going to happen during your test because you're getting a brand new mannequin. Okay, again, I'm taking small vertical pieces, pulling them straight out. As I get closer to the bottom, there's less hair to cut. And now I'm at the bottom. So I gotta make sure that this drops out. As soon as it drops out, which is there, I look at my line and I just make sure that I have a connection between point A and point B, which I do. Okay, I'm done with this back section, the right, and now I'm going to the left. It's okay if you don't, the class, this is how fast it has to go during the test, it's okay. Keep going, you know how to do this, you've done it many times, just catch up. Now I'm on the left section of the mannequin, okay? I'm on this section. So what I did with the last section, I'm gonna do the same thing. I kind of like to split it in two subsections. So I just get rid of this by combing it out of the way. I'm working up here again, and I'm pulling this up straight out of the direction of hair growth and making my cut. I try to do like a top, a middle, a bottom, and then the end piece. I try to like hit it 4 times. You want to look at this and treat this mannequin as like an orange slice. You want your orange slices to be very consistent. Shh. Guys, you're not allowed to talk during testing at all, so you got to be very quiet. Okay, again, my last piece, I'm going to comb it in the direction of hair growth, which is down. I comb it back several times back and forward. I wait till that bottom piece drops out, which it did, and this is where I cut and meet my cut line. And now I'm in my last section of my back. Again, I comb the hair. I comb the hair throughout the haircut all the time. If it's not combed, it won't part neatly. If it doesn't part neatly, it won't be cut neatly. I'm very meticulous with this, and so should you. Again, now I'm in the middle. I can have either 1 or 2 middle pieces. You can make as many subsections as you want. It's preference. Some people cut very, very small subsections. Some people take much larger ones. It's really what they feel most comfortable doing. But as a new hairdresser, you need to follow what the rules are, and it makes sense to do it the way I'm doing it. I just break it down to a very even point. Again, in the bottom, I'm combing down and waiting for that last piece to drop, which there it is, and that's all I'm cutting is a little bit of hair that's between the 2 points. Remember, with hair cutting, it's always connect point A to point B. Okay, now the entire back of my haircut is done. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do the mohawk parting. Now the mohawk is really important because this is gonna determine what the sides of the haircut will do. If you have to re-wet your mannequin, now's a good time to do it. So this is gonna determine the whole face shape, the whole main vibe of the haircut. So you're just gonna take that very first piece of the mohawk, you're gonna comb it directly straight up from the direction of hair growth, holding my scissors and my comb vertically, and you will see there's the line, and you're gonna keep it going toward the face. You wanna be careful not to overcut. So I do slightly angle my fingers up as I get towards the face. If I have to come back down and shorten it, that's fine. But initially, I like to cut less and go back. I am always afraid of cutting too much hair. I always say, you could always go back and cut, but you can never put hair back. So measure twice, cut once. Again, as you see, I'm moving up. There's like kind of more and more hair in the beginning of this haircut. And now here's the moment of truth. I take my bangs. Now, I actually could have cut more in the back. So what I'm going to do is, here's point A, here's point B, and I'm going to cut them there. If I want to travel back a little bit and cut a little bit more, I can. Again, I'm very cautious to cut too much hair off the top. Okay, so that's good enough. Now I got all this line perfectly even. Point A does meet point B, so in other words, as I come through, I can see that my hairline that I just created, my vertical guideline, is perfect. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take this whole section and comb it back. I'm going to split it in half because now I'm going to work on the sides. Whatever side that I choose, it doesn't really matter. You could choose whatever side you're comfortable to start. So now I take everything out of that clip. I come around and I comb all the hair flat. Again, I like to have a front part, so I like to comb that forward. I always like to work in subsections. A middle part, which would be in here, a middle section, subsection, and then my last subsection is in the back. So you can easily see 1, 2, and 3 sections. Now, I'm going to comb the hair directly in the direction it grows, right over the spot it grows in, and I take my apex section again. Now, don't forget, my traveling guideline is in the back and from the top, because we already cut the back and we already cut the mohawk. So now I'm going to pull this up in the direction of hair growth and just cut what's overhanging. As I'm dropping hair forward, I'm also using a little bit to make my traveling guideline meet my next section. Okay? Always comb several times before you cut in case there's a looped hair or a knot. Pull it out in the direction of hair growth and only cut what's sticking out too far. Now I'm in my second to last section. And I have to do the same thing that I did everywhere else in the hair with the last section. I have to drop the bottom out. So again, this piece, I combed it from the back and from the side. I pull it down in the direction of hair growth. As soon as I see that piece drop, which it just did, that's when I turn my fingers and cut, making sure that all that line is even. I take a little bit of the hair that I just cut and I move it forward. So now this back section is done on the side and now I'm in the middle. So here's my middle section. And I take my top layer. Again, holding my comb and shears vertically. They're in the same hand right now. You always have the shears in the hand with the scissors through a haircut. You never put your shears down. Okay? This is pulled straight up. I find my guideline. My traveling guideline is right there, and that's where I cut. Pulling half the hair to the side and grabbing the next section of this piece. Again, I'm combing it straight out from the direction of hair growth. Vertically, make sure my fingers are perpendicular exactly, and if they are, I will have an exact haircut. The geometry of a haircut is very important. You have to understand that 90 degrees is going to give you a nice soft level of layering, not be too dramatic. When we get to a 45-degree haircut, it gets more dramatic, 60-degree, whatever you choose. But right now, we're only working with 90 degrees, meaning that my fingers are parallel to the head at this point perfectly. And I'm holding my scissor in a vertical position. Now I am pulling the hair in the direction of hair growth down, waiting for that bottom piece to drop, and just cutting the teeny tiny hairs that were sticking out. Okay, now I'm in my last section of the front on the right side. I'm going to take, again, pulling out my hair, making sure I'm combing the back and the front. I already have a guideline. I have to meet that guideline and cut. Second section. There's probably only 3 sections in the front because it's a smaller area of hair. And there's very little to cut up here because we already did the perimeter. The last thing I want to do is to comb this hair in the direction of hair growth. And when the hair drops, if there's anything to cut, I cut it. But right now, there's really nothing to cut. Okay, so this side is perfectly done. Now I'm going to begin this side. Okay. Again, because I'm a right-handed person, when I cut the left side of the hair, I face her. When I cut the right side of the hair, I'm cutting from behind. Always remember that. If you're right-handed, on the left side of the head, you're face to face. Okay, again, I'm going to start at the top here at the apex. I'm at 34 minutes, and this is where I should be. And again, I'm using my vertical hand positioning. And creating my subsections. I gotta turn this way. Again, I have a middle, a back, and a front. Always make sure you're combing the hair several times in the back and in the front of the hair section, and that you're pulling it exactly perpendicular. I'm pulling it from the direction of hair growth. As soon as that bottom piece drops out, again, that's where you make your marks. Now I'm in the middle of the haircut. I'm going to take a little bit of the back that I just cut just for an extra guideline. Pull it straight up using the small teeth. Straight, straight, straight in the direction of hair growth. So far my geometry is perfect. I could tell because all of my lines are matching up nice and neat. Again, drop. You always use a little bit of the last piece you cut for a guide. Again, this piece grows a little bit lower, so I'm going to comb it in the direction of hair growth. I'm going to drop that bottom piece out as soon as it drops. Again, sometimes you have to wait a little if you see it stuck, and then cut it from that direction. Okay, I'm at the last section of my hair, and we are at 36 minutes and 25 seconds, and that's really a good place to be, especially during the state board exams. You want to grab the hair, pull it out in the direction of hair growth. Again, making sure that my comb is exactly vertical and perpendicular to the hair that you're pulling out. Okay, pulling that out, making sure there's just a little bit of hair that you're cutting now because you already cut the perimeter. You never want to cut the perimeter twice. So we're kind of just connecting point A to point B at this point. And I am done with this part of the haircut. Before your examiner looks at your hair, looks at your haircut, you want to look at your haircut. So the very best thing to do is to take that front piece, making sure that you're holding the scissor and comb in the same hand. You take your comb, you look at the measurement, and that your measurement is exactly in the front as what it is in the nape. You're going to comb it through and make sure there's nothing sticking out. So if I'm combing this through and I do see two hairs here, I just cut them off because sometimes hair does get stuck, and you'll see it as you go around the haircut. So all I'm doing is walking around the entire mannequin, pulling down the hair at this moment in a horizontal position, making sure there's no pieces of hair sticking out. I do find a couple because, like I said, it's natural for hair that's wet to loop around. Don't get nervous if this happens. Sometimes it'll get stuck. Now, if I'm combing this straight, it should be the same angle on this side as it is on this side, and it is. So this haircut so far looks good. Your examiner is going to come to you now, and she's going to, or he's going to, go through the haircut, making sure that nothing is sticking out. He is going to check your haircut horizontally, and that's why I asked you to check it horizontally, okay? During the examination, they're gonna say to you, show me a different way to cut hair, and that's when you're going to use your razor, but we're not going to address this at this time. All we're going to do right now is to let you see that this is what the haircut should look like when your examiner is checking it. We are at 38 minutes. You have 50 minutes to complete this, and good luck.